All right. Someone want to open us up in prayer this morning? No? All right, I will. Father God, thank you for today. I pray that you would be with those who are traveling today. Be with Aaron and Suzanne during their move. Keep them safe, and pray that you would help them to do your will. I pray that you would be with those who are absent, and pray that you would bless us today as we meet to worship, fellowship, and learn. And I ask that anything that is false that is taught, that you would help us to forget it and to correct as we move forward. Thank you for your Son and his sacrifices. Amen. All right, so last weekend we discussed the Nebuchadnezzar statue and what qualified a nation to be considered in that vision as a nation considered by God. What did they share in common? And so we looked at that they all had, well, they were all major nations within the region of Israel, which was Babylon, Persia, and Greece, in reference to the statue. We looked at, so they're in the region of Israel. They have a huge influence over the region, both socially and through religion, or lack thereof. And they had a relationship with Israel. So Babylon was a tool of judgment against Judah. Persia was a tool to help reestablish Israel in their state, in their region. And Greece was also a tool of judgment against Israel. So they had a direct relation with Israel, whether positive or negative. And so I think it's those three parameters, well, and their attitude, going back to, our study of this Babylon that's to come. These nations all share in a similar spirit as well, or attitude, their leaders. And so it's with those four parameters that I want to look at this fourth, or this nation that's to come, which is represented as the iron legs and the feet of iron and clay. So this fourth great nation, if we hold to the same parameters, will be in the region of Israel. It will have both social and religious impact and influence, and it will have some kind of relationship with Israel. And it will share in the same attitude. Its leaders will share in the same attitude as the nations that came before it. So first I want to look at how this nation its relationship with Israel. This kingdom to come, what will its relationship be with Israel? So let's look at, we'll start with Ezekiel 38. There's a lot of different viewpoints on this chapter. I'm going to propose one. What's that? Chapter 38. Starting in verse 1, it says, the word of Adonai came to me. Human being, turn your face towards Gog of the land of Magog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophecy against him. Say that Adonai Elohim says, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around. Does anybody else have a different translation? I'm trying to remember what nations those are. I think it has put and... What is it? Okay. Okay. Verse 4, I will turn around, put hooks in your jaws, and bring you out with all your army, horses, and horsemen, all completely equipped, a great horde with breastplates and shields, all wielding swords. Paris, Ethiopia, and Put are with them, all with breastplates and helmets. Gomer, with all its troops, the house of Togarmah, in the far reaches of the north, with all its troops. Many peoples are with you. Prepare yourself, get ready, you and all your crowd, gathered around you, and take charge of them. After many days have passed, you will be mustered for service. In later years, you will invade the land which has been brought back from the sword, gathered out of many peoples, the mountains of Israel. They had been lying in ruins for a long time, but now Israel has been extracted from the peoples, and all of them are living there securely. You will come up like a storm, you will be like a cloud covering the land, you and all your troops, and many other people with you. Adonai Elohim says, when that day comes, thoughts will well up in your mind, and you will devise a sinister scheme. You will say, I am going to invade this land of unwalled villages. I will take by surprise these people who are at peace, living securely in all in places without walls, bars, and gates. I will seize the spoil and take the plunder. You will attack the former ruins that are now inhabited and come against the people gathered from the nations who have acquired livestock and other wealth and are living in the central parts of the land. Sheba, Dedan, and all the leading merchants of Tarshish will ask you, have you come to seize spoil? Have you assembled your hordes to loot, to carry off silver, gold, livestock, and other wealth, to take much plunder? Therefore, human being, prophesy, tell Gog that Adonai Elohim says this. Won't you be aware of it when my people Israel are living in security? You will choose just that time to come from your place in the far reaches of the north, you and many peoples with you, all of them on horseback, a huge horde, a mighty army, and you will invade my people Israel like a cloud covering the land. This will be in the Akarat Hayamim, which I'm assuming is the end days, last days. And I will bring you against my land so that the nation will know me when before their eyes I am set apart as holy through you, Gog. Let's see, do I want to keep going? Yeah, so verse 17, Adonai Elohim says, I spoke of you long ago through my servants, the prophets of Israel. Back then they prophesied for many years that I would have you invade them. When that day comes, when Gog invades the land of Israel, says Adonai Elohim, my furious anger will boil up, and my jealousy and my heated fury I speak. When that day comes, there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel, so that the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the wild beasts, and all the reptiles creeping on the ground, and every human being there in the land will tremble before me. Mountains will fall, cliffs crumble, and every wall crash to the ground. I will summon a sword against him throughout all my mountains, says Adonai Elohim. Every man will wield his sword against his brother. I will judge him with plague and with blood. I will cause torrential rain to fall on him, his troops and many peoples with him, along with huge hailstones, fire, and sulfur. This will sound familiar when we hit Revelation 16 and 17. I will show you my greatness and holiness, making myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am Adonai. So what's going on here in this imagery? Right. So there's this big army amassing. Is it just one nation? Right. So this one nation has gathered many, and who are they going up against? They're going up against Gog? Yeah. So they're going up against Israel. Spill. So there's a lot of speculation on who exactly Gog is. It deals with the descendants of Japheth. Because if you go back, you can Gog's mentioned as part of the lineage of Japheth. What's that? Yes. So there's historians speculate that Magog is are descendants of Russia and the surrounding regions. Others suggest that it's Germany, Ireland, or Scotland. Islamic texts suggest that it was also a nation from the north, from the region of Russia, which could be the Turks. So if you remember, the Turks are the they're the basically founders of the Ottoman Empire, and they migrated down from the Russian territory. There is an Assyrian inscription from the 9th century BC that mentions the country of Gogu, which is made up of the tribe of Magogians and Scythians. So they were from the region of the Caspian Sea. Homer's Iliad makes mention of the Scythians, who were equestrian nomads from Russia. So very possible that they too were the Turkish people. And then there's others that suggest maybe it was Mongolia. So there's a lot of speculation on who Gog is. My speculation that it is I think it is the Turkish people that migrated down from Russia. One other thing I wanted to mention in, let's see, in verse 5, it mentions these people that are, so as Gog's advancing on Israel, in verse 5 and 6, what is these, what's that? So as Gog is advancing on Israel in Ezekiel 38, verse 5 and 6, there's these people that are, their response is, let's see, where'd it go? Yeah. Sorry, not there. Where am I? Oh, it's, sorry, Shiva. So verse 13. Shiva, Dedan, and all the leading merchants of Tarshish will ask you, have you come to see spoil? So their response of this advancing army is, you know, they said, have you come? So indicating that they're in the region of Israel. So they're already present in that area, and they see this advancing horde of armies. So So Tarshish, going back to those people, so who are the three people mentioned? It says Sheba, Dedan, and all the leading merchants of Tarshish. So Tarshish are the Kurds and the Turks. And then it also makes mention of the Ethiopians. And then Sheba are Dedan are the Cushites. So they're from a northern region north of Ethiopia. And Sheba is the Sabians. Anybody remember who the Sabians were?
Oh, Sabaeans.
Sabaeans, yeah.
Yeah, on that.
So back in Saudi Arabia, we had the Bedouins and the Sabaeans, right? And they were in conflict on who were the true Arabs. So this region in Israel or near Israel is made up of Sabaeans or Arabs.
Those are all seafaring port cities.
Yeah, so it's made up of Arabs, it's made up of Turks, and it's made up of Ethiopians, basically. So after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire was defeated and the League of Nations broke up the territory, the people living in that area consisted of Arabs, of Ethiopians, Egyptians, and of Turks. And they named the people what? Palestinians. So I think it's talking about Palestine, because Palestine is right there next to Israel, and they see this huge horde of people coming towards Israel. Okay, so let's turn to Isaiah 13. One through 10. Isaiah 13, 1 through 10 says, "This is a prophecy about Babel, which Yeshuyahu, the son of Amat, saw. Hoist a banner on a high mountain, shout to the invaders, beckon them to enter the noble gates. I have ordered my Holy One, summon my heroes, eager to and bold to execute my anger." Also, I forgot to mention, so back in Ezekiel 38, so we also had a gathering of Israel, right, out of all the nations. So Israel was brought back into their own country and established, and then that's when the army invaded. All right, Isaiah 13. Let's go to verse 2. "Hoist the banner on high mountain, shout to the invaders, beckon them to enter the noble gates. I have ordered my Holy One, summon my heroes, eager and bold to execute my anger. Listen, a tumult on the mountains. It sounds like a vast multitude. Listen, the uproar of the kingdoms, of the nations gathering together. Adonai is mustering an army of war. They come from a distant land, from beyond the horizon. It's Adonai with the weapons of his rage to lay waste to all the earth. How, for the day of Adonai is at hand, destruction coming from Shaddai. This is why every arm will hang limp and everyone's courage melt away. They will be gripped by panic, seized with pain and agony, writhing like a woman in labor, looking aghast at each other. Face the flames. Here comes the day of Adonai, full of cruelty, rage, and hot fury, to desolate the earth and destroy the sinners in it. For the stars, the constellations in the sky will no longer give their light. The sun will be dark when it rises, and the moon will no longer shine. So here again, we see a massive, an army approaching Israel, right? Let's look at Joel chapter 2. $684. Joel chapter 2. Joel chapter 2, verse 1 through 20. Says, "Blow the shofar in Zion, sound an alarm on my holy mountain. Let all living in the land tremble, for the day of Adonai's coming. It's upon us, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick fog. A great and mighty horde is spreading, like black." I'm in verse 2 right now. Starting in verse 2, "A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick fog, a great and mighty horde is spreading, like blackness over the mountains. There has never been anything like it, nor will there ever be again. Not even after the years of many generations. Ahead of them a fire devours, behind them a flame consumes. Ahead the land is like Gan Eden. Behind them a desert waste. From them there is no escape. They look like horses, and like cavalry they charge. With a rumble like that of chariots, they leap over the mountaintops like crackling flames, devouring stubble, like a mighty horde in battle array. At their presence the people will writhe in anguish. Every face is drained of color. Like warriors they charge, they scale the wall like soldiers. Each one keeps to his own course without getting in the other's way. They don't jostle each other, but stay on their own paths. They burst through the defense unharmed, without even breaking rank. They rush into the city, they run along the wall, they climb up into the houses, entering like a thief through the windows. At their advance, the earth quakes, and the sky shakes. The sun and moon turn black, and the stars stop shining. Adonai shouts orders to his forces. His army is immense, mighty, and it does what he says. For great is the day of Adonai, fearsome, terrifying. Who can endure it? Yet even now, says Adonai, turn to me with all your heart, with fasting, weeping, and lamenting. Tear your heart, not your garments, and turn to Adonai your God, for he is merciful and compassionate, slow to anger, rich in grace, and willing to change his mind about disaster. Who knows? He may change his mind, and leave a blessing behind him, grain offering and drink offerings to present to Adonai your God. Blow the shofar in Zion, proclaim a holy fast, call for solemn assembly. Gather the people, consecrate the congregation, assemble the leaders, gather the children, even infants sucking at the breast. Let the bridegroom leave his room, and the bride the bridal chamber. Let the Kohen who serve Adonai stand weeping between the vestibule and the altar. Let them say, spare your people, Adonai. Don't expose your heritage to mockery or make them a byword among the nations. Why should the people say, where is their God? Then Adonai will become jealous for his land and have pity on his people. Here's how Adonai will answer his people. I will send you grain, wine, and olive oil enough to satisfy you, and no longer will I make you a mockery among the nations. No, I will take the northerner away, far away from you, and drive him to the land that is waste and barren, with his vanguard toward the eastern sea and his rearguard toward the western sea. His stench and his rottenness will arise because he has done great things. So, again, imagery of that's similar to Ezekiel and Isaiah, of this great army that's amassing against Israel. It even says that it stirred it's stirred up by God and given, it appears given a very clear directive, as it says, you know, not, the soldiers don't get in each other's way. So they're very organized and understand their missions. If you haven't recognized the point yet, let's go to Zechariah 12. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 6 through 9. Says, I'll start back in verse 2. I will make Jerusalem a cup that will stagger the surrounding peoples, even Judah will be cut up in the siege against Jerusalem. When that day comes, I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who try to lift it will hurt themselves, and all the earth's nations will be massed against her. When that day comes, says Adonai, I will strike all the horses with panic and their riders with madness. I will keep watch over Judah, but I will strike blind all the horses of the peoples. The leaders of Judah will say to themselves, those living in Jerusalem are my strength through Adonai, Savat, their God. When that day comes, I will make the leaders of Judah like a blazing fire pan in a pile of wood, like a fiery torch among sheaves of grain. They will devour all the surrounding peoples on the right and on the left. Jerusalem will be inhabited in her own place. Jerusalem. Adonai will save the tents of Judah first, so that the glory of the house of David and the glory of those living in Jerusalem will not appear greater than that of Judah. When that day comes, Adonai will defend those living in Jerusalem. On that day, even someone who stumbles will be like David, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of Adonai before them. When that day comes, I will seek to destroy all nations attacking Jerusalem, and I will pour out on the house of David and on those living in Jerusalem a spirit of grace and prayer, and they will look to me whom they pierced. So, again, showing this army advancing on Jerusalem, and then the Lord steps in and delivers a portion or a remnant of Judah and Israel. Oh, well, this is a realization, of that what they did to the Messiah, that they missed who their king was, and they, when this army advances, and they're delivered, they come to realize that the one they, put on the stake was the actual king and leader of Israel. All right, so that we see this common occurrence of this nation, or that's gathered many nations to come up against Israel. So how do we know this nation is related to the iron legs and the clay and iron feet of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream of? How much time do I have? 10 minutes? So let's start in Daniel 2. Daniel chapter 2. we'll start in verse 42. Let's start back in, let's see. Yeah, we'll start in verse 42. So Daniel chapter 2, verse 42, it says, just as the toes of feet were part iron and part clay, this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. You saw the iron mixed with clay. That means that they will cement their alliance by intermarriages, but they won't stick together any more than iron blends with clay. In the days of those kings, so the kings of this nation made up of iron and clay, the God of heaven will establish a kingdom that will never be destroyed. And that kingdom will not pass into the hands of another people. It will break to pieces and consume all those kingdoms, but it itself will stand forever. Like the stone you saw, which without human hands separated itself from the mountain and broke to pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. So the great God has revealed to the king that will come about in the future the dream is true and its interpretation is reliable. So here indicating that this final nation that's made up of iron and clay will be defeated by God, broken up by God at the end of what Scripture calls the end of days. And again in Daniel 7, so let's go to Daniel 7, verse 19. So Daniel's again, here he receives a vision. And then verse 19 he says, then I wanted to know what this fourth beast meant. So, you know, going back, we correlated the portions of this beast back to the statue. And so this fourth beast is related to the feet, the iron legs and the feet. So in verse 19 it says, then I wanted to know what the fourth beast meant, the one that was different from all the others, so very terrifying, with iron teeth and bronze nails, which devoured, crushed, and stamped its feet on what was left, and what the 10 horns on its head meant, and on the other horn which sprang up, and before which 3 fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth speaking arrogantly, and seemed greater than the others. I watched, and that horn made war with the holy ones, and was winning. Until the Ancient One came, judgment was given in favor of the holy ones of the Most High. And the time came for the holy ones to take over the kingdom. This is what he said. The fourth animal will be a fourth kingdom on earth. It will be different from the other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth, trample it down, and crush it. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings will rise, and we'll get into these 10 kings. And yet another one will arise after them. Now he will be different from the earlier ones, and he will put down 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High and try to exhaust the holy ones of the Most High. And he will attempt to alter the seasons and the law. And the holy ones will be handed over to him for a times and a half a time. But when the court goes into session, he will be stripped of his rulership, which will be consumed and completely destroyed. Then the kingdom, the rulership, and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given to the holy people of the Most High. And their kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all the rulers will serve and obey them. So again, this is kind of correlating this beast or fourth kingdom as they come up against Israel. And it says they'll even overtake Israel. And I believe even if you go back to Zechariah towards the end of the book, it talks about how part of Jerusalem will be invaded by this army, and women will be ravaged and men killed. So So yeah, so you have this fourth nation that wages war against Israel and is ultimately delivered by God. I think I'll stop there. I only have a few minutes left. So we'll next weekend we'll look at Daniel 11. Daniel 11's kind of is pretty tricky. If you want to read it ahead of time, I haven't really wrapped my head around it yet, but I think it's worth looking at. Okay. Any comments or questions so far? So it's clear. Is it clear that there will be this time when Jude's shaking his head? So there will be this nation or nations that come up against Israel at a time in the future, and will wage war against Israel. Will invade, will destroy, and they will be ultimately turned back by God. And that's why, so we'll get into Daniel 11, which starts getting into this king of the north and king of the south, and also related to that will be in Revelation 16, 17, and 18. Okay? All right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interest because I was kind of researching Daniel 11, and there's quite a bit of material from the Messianic Jewish community about current events, which are going on right now in Israel, which they're like, it's going down like right now. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's not a, it's like people say the day of the Lord is like when it's going to happen, like, a day and God's going to return. It's a process, and so I think the same is true to this. It's a process that's going to lead up to this, final, and it comes down to, and we'll see this when we get in Revelation, it comes in it, and we read that in Ezekiel 38, this nation sees a minority that's succeeding and living securely in their own land, and they're jealous. They want that. And I think that's part of the reason why, we'll look at some of the plagues that Revelation, I think it's 17, talks about. But yeah, it's a nation that, like the clay and iron, they're combined, but they have issues. Like they're not successful as a nation. Here you got the small nation that they surround. That's advancing, living great. They're a minority, and they're like, that's what we want, So. Yeah.
Maybe scattered, I'm sure that's going to come, but they will not be destroyed. God made promises to them. And we believe eventually they will turn their hearts towards Him.
Yeah.
But seeing in our lifetime, not even prior to our lifetime, but in the last 200 years alone, that 70 war, or 5 day war, multiple times as folks have come up against them.
Yeah. I mean, on day one, they were declared a nation. The Arabs waged war against them. I mean,
If we want to go down a really fun dark hole, I happened those last few days about the sky trumpets and how like all over the world, like they've always been around, but like it can be in a cloudy day, it can be in a bright day, and they're all over the world, from the North Pole to the South Pole to the equator, and they can't figure it out quite why, but it's like an atmospheric condition and for some people, they go on for hours and hours and days, and some people it's just like little bit, and they can't figure out what's happening in the atmosphere. They have with some of them, they have found that some of it's coming from underwater. They know that over in the UK and Europe and Scotland and Ireland, they have fish that are mating, and it sounds like this really low sky trumpet, but it's really actually the fish.
Yeah.
You hear them 100 miles away, but they have them if you go, if you just look at the recordings and listen to them, all over the world, they sound exactly the same, and they're increasing. That's what they're finding too. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's atmosphere, but God's nature.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I had.